The Governor General of Canada continues to waste taxpayer dollars. I'm Marco Perry. Welcome to the Perry Platform. What exactly is a Governor General? Well, that's the representative of the Canadian monarch, which is currently King Charles. The King is the head of state of Canada. That's because of historical reasons, but the King does not reside in Canada. He's over in the UK. The King, on the advice of the Canadian Prime Minister, appoints a Governor General to essentially be the King's stand-in. He gets to carry on with the Canadian government, or she, in the King's name, performing most of these constitutional, ceremonial, and royal duties. AKA, it's an irrelevant job in today's world. The monarchy has absolutely nothing to do with how Canada truly functions. Everything there is just for show. All of our interactions with the King and Queen is just to honor our historical relationship, which on one hand is fine, but on the other, as we'll explore here, if it comes at a cost to Canadians, it should be revisited. Canada's current Governor General is Mary Simon, and here's the first expense. She gets paid $340,000 per year to do nothing consequential. It seems like her main role is, as I said, to live an extravagant lifestyle, and to do it at the expense of the Canadian taxpayer. The latest report of honestly blatant corruption coming out of this role is the Governor General's 4-day visit to Germany with 32 guests, which cost taxpayers $700,000. Imagine spending $700,000 in 4 days. How did she do that? Well, the National Post has the details. They report that one part of that expense includes $103,000 for in-flight catering for the government's aircraft and the 33 passengers on board. That's over $3,000 per person in catering. That's completely absurd. I didn't even know you could spend $3,000 on catering on an airplane. Now, the next interesting thing here is you have to ask yourself, what exactly is the Governor General doing in Germany? What was the trip for? Was it going to serve the taxpayer? Create value? Maybe you did splurge a lot, but were you doing so for a proper mission that we could all get behind? Get this. The Governor General went with all these people with this grand expense to attend the Frankfurt Book Fair. And her husband was also part of the crowd. And also on board were staffers, managers, and advisors from the Office of the Secretary to the Governor General. The Governor General really has nothing to do. Why on earth did they have a full suite of staffers? It's truly insane. I can understand this role making sense in the late 1800s or early 1900s, but in 2023, it strikes me that there are probably some better uses of that money. Now, these documents from these extravagant expenses were provided in response to an order paper question submitted by the Bloc Québécois, and that's from MP Julie Vignola. And I applaud her for doing that, because it truly is insane that this stuff is happening, first of all, and to have it happen behind the scenes, that'd be a disgrace. Now, here's a quote. They say, in a response to being put on blast, this is the Governor General's office, that the focus of the visit was to strengthen bilateral relationships between Canada and Germany, and represent Canada at the world's largest publishing trade show. Well, okay, if you want to represent Canada at this book fair, sure, but don't spend $700,000 doing that. Don't bring a 30-person entourage. Don't spend $100,000 on in-flight catering. And let's be honest, it's a BS excuse. There's no need to strengthen relationships between Canada and Germany at a book fair. That's going to do nothing for relationship building. It's probably going to do some for personal networking for the Governor General. It's probably going to be a fun trip, but this is a silly excuse. This isn't even the first time something like this has happened. Last March, the Governor General and a 29-person entourage, so she's growing the entourage it seems, racked up a $93,000 catering bill during their trip to Dubai. Once again, pure insanity. At least have some respect for taxpayers. At least acknowledge the fact that many people are struggling to get by right now due to things like growing interest rates and poor economic conditions, emerging post-pandemic. It's a slap in the face to all Canadians to have one of our highest public officials, who already has quite a cushy job, splurging like there's no care in the world. Obviously, there really isn't from her perspective because it's not her money, but that type of judgment is poor coming from a public official. They should be at least a little bit more frugal with our money. These types of antics really bring to the forefront of public attention the role of the monarchy in modern-day Canada. Now, first of all, I am in favor of preserving and honoring our past and our tradition and our history. The monarchy plays a large role in Canada's development, and things have largely been friendly between us. I see no reason to spit on that. I see no reason to dishonor that, but that does not mean we do so honoring that relationship irresponsibly. And we don't do it at great taxpayer losses. We have to be rational here. And I actually agree with what the Bloc Québécois said. Here's a quote from them. They say the Governor General's travel craziness must stop. The Bloc Québécois' position is clear. We must get rid of this archaic function, the cost of which far exceeds its usefulness. And that's true. It's a useless role. The cost far exceeds the value we get from it. I'd be happy to rid ourselves of that archaic function. We can't be so wed to tradition that we do so at massive inefficiency. There just is no purpose for that today. But we can still honor our relationship with the UK. It doesn't mean we sever ties and create a sour environment there. It just means we position ourselves better for the future. We be realistic. We understand that opportunity cost is real, and the resources that we pour into these fancy trips and catering could be better used to serve Canadians. One other thing that does disturb me about this whole charade of needing a Governor General to represent the King, which doesn't actually matter in Canadian political life, is this theme of acting. Really, we're just pretending. And I truly hate when politicians do this. They do it quite often. They put on a show. They masquerade. They pretend, even though we all know the truth of the matter. We all know that the Governor General is doing nothing of consequence, but still we pretend that we need this role. We still have politicians acting as if they're actually doing something important, and we see that with the excuse they gave. At a book fair, you're truly building international relations, and $700,000 is a accurate cost for such a mission over 4 days. It's just insane. In some ways, it feels like they're treating Canadians as idiots. We see this also happen when politicians just speak, like that Liberal MP who was giving advice to Chinese officials to detain the two Michaels further and for longer periods of time because it'd be unfavorable to the Liberal Party if they were to release them. And then that individual has been denying everything so far. He's just performing. It's so fake. There really is very little honor in politics these days, and it's a major issue. And then politicians have the nerve to ask why Canadians distrust them. It's because of nonsense like this. It feels like politicians would rather prioritize their own personal well-being, their own personal progress, their own personal objectives, rather than putting forth something like democratic principles and values, honor, and even the country at the forefront of their priority list. Part of the reason why they feel so comfortable doing that is because, to be frank, the Canadian populace is very passive when it comes to our government. We have to get a little bit more passionate. We have to speak up a little bit more. And we have to call for things. If we don't put pressure on these politicians, they're going to continue to run amok. We do have to start saying things like, we want the Governor General's role to be taken off the table. And I'm glad the Bloc Québécois is doing that. Now, for all their faults, at least they do seem to have principles. And that's something that we can all learn from. Now, with that, it does bring us to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the material, be sure to leave a review and share. They'll help us grow. And you can find me online at perryplatform.org and on social media at perryplatform. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.